Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the extraordinary story of a highly dynamic, incredibly active light infantry unit of the Bangladesh Army. We're looking at the 32nd Battalion of the East Bengal Regiment. But, to anyone in the military fraternity, they're known simply as the Fearless 32. And trust me, this isn't just your standard look at a military unit. It is an absolute masterclass in how modern armed forces adapt to handle both domestic security and global diplomacy. To really understand this unit, you have to understand their mindset. This fierce regimental motto instantly sets the stakes. Rakto dia gorlo janam tarai emrashish Bengal, literally translating to, "We are the last Bengal, whose name was carved in blood." It's a gripping, heavy statement, isn't it? It completely anchors everything these soldiers do, demanding absolute operational resilience and immediate readiness, no matter how adverse the combat conditions get.
Okay, let's dive into this. Our roadmap today covers the Fearless 32, defending the home front, a civilian lifeline, global peacekeepers, anatomy of a tiger, and finally, the modern military legacy.
Section 1. The Fearless 32. Unveiling the 32 East Bengal. To frame exactly what 32 East Bengal is, we have to recognize they aren't just some dusty historic relic from the 1971 independence era. Actually, scratch that. They are a highly active, fully operational, regular light infantry battalion right now. Raised in the post-1971 expansion phase to absorb rising recruitment and secure borders, they were infused with veteran trainers to lock in a philosophy of zero retreat. By the late 1980s, under commanders like Major Rafiq, they were executing complex counterinsurgency tasks. Jump forward to 2016 and 2017, and you see these pivotal structural transitions under Lieutenant Colonel Mohammad Quddusur Rahman, evolving today under the military's Forces Goal 2030 blueprint. So the number 32 is their unique regimental identifier. You'll see it stamped on internal logs, sports colors, station banners, the whole shebang. But that number represents something massive. It represents a highly disciplined force of about 600 to 800 active personnel. They are systematically divided into rifle companies, a support company with heavy weaponry, and a battalion headquarters company. And they are constantly rotating through active border security and rigorous garrison training. Section 2. Defending the home front, the combat foundation. Now, what's really interesting about this is that before any peacekeeping or diplomatic missions even come into the picture, this is fundamentally an elite combat infantry battalion, fully optimized for quick deployment maneuvers and close-quarter battle. The rugged, forested terrain of southeastern Bangladesh really forged their modern tactical framework. Under Operation Utoran, rotating into the Chittagong Hill Tracts is definitely not your standard warfare. It requires high-risk jungle patrolling, counter-ambush techniques tailored specifically for mountainous terrain, and dismantling illegal weapons caches. It is an incredibly tense internal defense matrix. And here is where their dual identity really emerges. On one hand, you have fierce frontline combat capabilities. We're talking trench warfare, counter-ambush drills, tactical movement under fire. But simultaneously, because of long deployments in these rugged, remote areas, they pivot to civil-military cooperation. They're out there paving the way for civilian development projects, building roads, and setting up schools. This contrast perfectly illustrates their core identity as the warrior diplomat. Section 3. A civilian lifeline, bridging military and society. In Bangladesh, the concept of aid to civil power is profound. It acts as an absolute lifeline during national crises. When a massive cyclone or torrential monsoons flood the vulnerable coastal belts, the civilian government mobilizes the Fearless 32 instantly. These soldiers immediately build emergency embankments to hold back floodwaters. They manage the macro-level logistics to distribute rations by boat to entirely isolated villages, and they set up rapid response field water purification plants. They essentially become the emergency infrastructure overnight. But their civilian aid goes way beyond disaster relief. Personnel from units like 32 East Bengal have historically been utilized by the state for major administrative tasks. Securing transparent voter lists, compiling biometric national ID cards, rolling out digital passport frameworks. During highly volatile domestic windows, they act as an organized, impartial, stabilizing force that everyday citizens can absolutely trust. Section 4. Global Peacekeepers, exporting soft power. Moving from domestic support to the global stage. When the Fearless 32 deploys under the United Nations Department of Peace Operations, they do so as a BANBAT, that's a cohesive Bangladesh battalion group. Operating as a complete unit ensures standardized protocols and an unbroken chain of command. This allows them to integrate seamlessly into incredibly volatile, multi-dimensional missions like MONUSCO in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and UNMISS in South Sudan. And this brilliantly illustrates their operational footprint on the world stage. Beyond their massive presence in UN missions across Africa, their global alliances include bilateral exercises like Exercise Sampriti with the Indian Army, which focuses heavily on counterinsurgency interoperability. Then there's Exercise Tiger Lightning with the United States Army Pacific. There, they actually swap modern urban combat and medical evacuation tactics with American infantry units. It's a true exchange of expertise. The realities of these deployments are intense, to say the least. There are documented accounts of unnamed UN Command Framework officers from this unit receiving direct commendations for successfully defending IDP camps under direct fire from armed rebel groups. Yet, right alongside that combat valor, their doctors and engineers are running free medical camps, rebuilding local schools, and digging tube wells for water-scarce communities. This approach is so impactful that local populations in Africa have historically adopted Bengali phrases and even named market squares after Bangladeshi peacekeepers. Talk about leaving a positive mark.
Section 5. Anatomy of a Tiger. Inside the Battalion.
So what does it actually mean to be a soldier inside this specific battalion day in and day out? So the crucial point is understanding their structured foundation. Domestically, officers receive higher executive base pay, JCOs run the discipline pipelines on intermediate grades, and soldiers receive combat pay and subsidized ration quotas. But the absolute game changer here is the UN remittance multiplier. When deployed internationally, these soldiers are paid the standardized UN peacekeeping allowance in US dollars. This hard currency remittance massively elevates the socioeconomic standing of the infantrymen and their families as soon as they return home to Bangladesh. You can visualize the immense pride of this unit just by looking at their regimental dress. They wear this distinct deep maroon or blood red beret, a classic mark of elite infantry lineage. Pinned right to it is a brass cap badge showing the Royal Bengal tiger over a crescent moon and star, which beautifully symbolizes strength and grace. Out in the field, they're wearing digital pixelated green camouflage optimized for jungle operations. And on their chest, a heavy rack of ribbons, including the CHT counterinsurgency ribbon, disaster relief medals, and of course, the highly coveted blue and white UN Peacekeeping Medal. Section 6. The Modern Military Legacy. Leaders and the Future. You know, a battalion is really only as good as the leaders who shape it and the future it prepares for. When the unit gathers, they honor figures across all ranks. They look to the pioneer command group who laid down the original training manuals. They look to contemporary senior commanders, like Major General Khandakar Mohammad Shahidul Amran, whose foundational years in the 32nd literally shaped his trajectory to becoming a UN sector commander. They look to operational architects like Lieutenant Colonel M.D. Qudus Rahman, who led modern restructuring. And, absolutely crucially, they celebrate the non-commissioned anchors, the Subedar majors, who maintain the iron discipline of the unit decade after decade. Let's move to and see how this builds their future trajectory. Under the Armed Forces Macro Reorganization Blueprint, known as Forces Goal 2030, the Fearless 32 isn't just resting on its laurels. No way. They're actively upgrading their technical capabilities. They're incorporating modern asymmetric warfare tactics, night vision tactical deployments, and highly advanced digital communication links to meet the extreme demands of tomorrow's battlefield. Which leaves us with this final incredibly powerful thought. We've seen how the 32 East Bengal can execute flawless counter-ambush drills in a dense jungle. And then, in the very next breath, dig a water well for a fractured community in Africa. So, as global conflicts continue to evolve, is the ultimate weapon of a modern infantry unit its raw combat power? Or is it this remarkable dual identity capacity to build and enforce peace? It's a fascinating question, and it's one the Fearless 32 answers every single day. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.